No one came to my son's operation. A week later, Mom sent, "Your brother needs $2,500. You always help." I sent back 50 cents with a note, "You're cut off." The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. The first caller was. A week before my son's surgery, I posted in the family group chat. I said what was happening when it was happening and that I would be alone. I didn't even ask for help. I just wanted them to know. The message got 5 likes. No one called. No one followed up. Not even my mom. That's when something in me started cracking. It's hard to explain what it feels like to watch your 8-year-old double over in pain and still be more worried about how you're holding up. Ryan never once cried in front of me, even when he could barely get up to use the bathroom. His face would go pale and he'd just whisper that he was okay, that he could wait for the doctor. But I knew what the doctor already suspected. His appendix was angry and about to burst. I sent that message because, despite everything, I still thought maybe they'd care. That somehow maybe they were just busy or distracted, and once they saw it, they'd come through. I didn't need flowers or meals or anyone to pay the bill. I just didn't want to be sitting in that waiting room alone. 3 days before the operation, I tried calling my mom. It went to voicemail. I left a message. Nothing. Called my dad, my brother, my sister-in-law. No one picked up. Not a single return call. I wasn't even mad, not yet. Just numb. That night, I cried in the kitchen while heating up soup. Not because of the surgery. Because I realized I didn't have a single person to leave my son with if something happened to me. Then my phone buzzed. It was Aunt Linda. She didn't say anything dramatic. Just asked if I needed her to come help out the next few days. I said yes, and she was at my apartment 45 minutes later with groceries, extra towels, and that calm way she always had. She told me to sleep while she sat with Ryan. I slept through the night for the first time in weeks. The morning of the surgery, I was up at 4:30. My stomach was twisted in knots. I was trying not to show how bad it was, but I felt like I was about to collapse. Aunt Linda showed up at 5:45 with hot coffee, 2 bagels, a warm blanket, and a little bag full of markers, notebooks, and candy for Ryan. I didn't even know what to say. I just hugged her for a long time. We checked in at 6 o'clock. Ryan was so quiet. I think he was scared, but he just kept looking at me like he was trying to take cues from my face. I was barely holding it together. I kept checking the hospital entrance just in case. A ridiculous part of me still believed maybe my mom would walk in, maybe my dad would surprise me, maybe someone would show up. No one did. Just Aunt Linda. The woman my family treated like the oddball because she never got married, never had kids, never kept in touch the way they wanted. The one they rolled their eyes at whenever she brought up books or trips or yoga. She was the only one who stayed with me that day. Sat next to me in that plastic chair for 2.5 hours while I stared at the wall and tried not to imagine the worst. The surgeon came out and said it had been close. The appendix had just started leaking. If we had waited even another 12 hours, it could have been much worse. We caught it in time. Ryan would be okay. I couldn't even speak. I just nodded, and Aunt Linda put her arm around me and said we'd get through the next few days together. We spent 3 nights in the hospital. Aunt Linda never left. She brought fresh clothes, snacks, even my laptop when I needed to check in with work. She joked with Ryan, got the nurses laughing, and turned his hospital room into something that almost felt like home. My parents didn't call. My brother didn't text. But I saw his Instagram stories. He and his wife went to a vineyard that weekend. No mention of their nephew. We got home late on a Monday. Ryan was tired but smiling. The pain was gone. He kept asking if Aunt Linda could stay a few days. She said she already cleared her schedule for the week. I nearly cried. I was finally settling into the couch, feeling like I could exhale when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. "Hey sweetie. Hope you're all good now. Your brother needs $2,500. You always help. Let me know when you can send it." I stared at the screen like it had come from another planet. I reread it 5 times. She knew her grandson had just gone through emergency surgery. She hadn't called once. But now she wanted money, not even for herself but for my brother, who makes more than I do and who hasn't spoken to me in 4 months. I opened my banking app, transferred 50 cents to her account, wrote exactly 3 words in the memo line. "You're cut off." Then I turned my phone on silent and went to bed. For the first time in days, I slept like a rock. But peace didn't last long. The next morning, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Missed calls, voicemails, angry texts. And then the first real shock. A call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my dad's lawyer. And I realized something big was coming. The voice on the other end was too polite, too rehearsed. Said his name was Alan and he was calling on behalf of my father. Wanted to discuss the terms of the existing financial arrangement related to the shared family mortgage contribution. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about and hung up. He called back. I let it go to voicemail. Then I got a text from my dad. You can't just stop contributing. We all agreed. You're putting your brother and his family in a really tough spot. I laughed. Actually laughed. Sitting in my living room in sweats, still smelling faintly of antiseptic from the hospital, my son asleep in the next room with a fresh surgical scar, I laughed. Not a single person in my family had shown up. And now, somehow, I was the villain because I wasn't paying my brother's mortgage anymore? For the record, here's what the arrangement was. 5 years ago, my brother and his wife bought a house they couldn't afford. My parents helped with the down payment but asked me, the responsible one, to chip in monthly until he gets a raise. I was told it would be temporary. I was paying $600 a month. 5 years. Not a single missed payment. Not once did my brother say thank you. Not once did my parents offer to relieve me of the obligation even when I had Ryan and went part-time at work. And now, after everything, they thought they could threaten me back into paying? I didn't respond to the lawyer. I didn't call anyone back. I just forwarded the voicemail to Aunt Linda and told her what was going on. She came over an hour later with her laptop, a thick manila folder and a plan. Apparently, my dad had tried pulling the same thing on her a decade ago, involving her in some bogus shared property investment with shady terms. She shut it down hard back then and warned me not to get entangled in family finances. I should have listened. She had me look up a few legal clauses, showed me a sample letter, and within 2 hours we had a full statement drafted. It said I was not under any formal or legal obligation to continue payments. It cited the lack of documentation, the absence of any binding agreement, and in very plain language, stated that all future requests for money would be considered harassment. I emailed it to the lawyer and CC'd my father. Then I blocked the lawyer's number. The next day they showed up. I was making grilled cheese when the doorbell rang. I thought it was the delivery guy Aunt Linda had sent for. Instead, it was my parents. My mom was wearing her best "I'm disappointed in you" face. My dad had that stoic tight-lipped thing going on that he always did before a blow-up. They didn't even ask how Ryan was. Just said we needed to talk. Aunt Linda walked in from the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea and sat down at the dining table like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. My mom said I was making a big mistake. My dad said I was breaking a family promise. They both said I was hurting people who've always been there for me. I didn't say a word. Aunt Linda put her mug down and looked directly at them. She said very calmly that the only person being hurt here was Ryan. That while their grandson was in a hospital bed, they were at a wine tasting. That they didn't get to show up weeks late and start making demands. My mom tried to interrupt. Aunt Linda raised her hand and kept going. She said they were selfish. That they had drained me for years without once looking at how I was doing. That they only ever called when they needed something. And that if they didn't leave, now, she'd call security and have them removed from the property. Then she dropped the hammer. She told them she'd been paying for something they'd quietly leaned on her for. Something involving an old family account she'd managed for years, which I didn't even know about. And she said she was done. Effective immediately, they'd be on their own. My mom looked stunned. My dad didn't speak. They left without saying goodbye. That night I made a decision. No more explanations. No more guilt. No more money. My family had drawn their line years ago. I was just finally drawing mine. And they had no idea what was coming next. The silence after they left wasn't peaceful. It was eerie. I kept expecting another message, a call, someone to show up. But for 3 days, nothing. My mom didn't text. My dad didn't try to call. My brother didn't even acknowledge the situation. It was like they thought ignoring it would reverse what I'd done. Aunt Linda stayed over that week. She brought in some books for Ryan, cooked us actual meals, and just filled the house with this quiet, steady presence I hadn't realized we'd been missing. Every time I walked past the living room and saw her on the couch with Ryan, reading or watching a movie, I felt like I could breathe a little deeper. On Thursday morning, I dropped Ryan off at school for the first time since surgery. He waved from the door like nothing had ever happened. I remember thinking, this is the first normal moment we've had in weeks. I went to the store, got groceries, came home and opened my laptop. There was an email waiting for me from my brother's wife. Short, passive-aggressive. I heard you're not helping with the mortgage anymore. That puts us in a really tight place. I'm just asking you to think of your nephew, her son, and the example you're setting. You've always been the dependable one. Not a word about Ryan. Not even a fake copy-pasted, hope he's okay. Just guilt, as if that was supposed to work on me now. I didn't reply. By Saturday my brother called. First time in months. I let it ring. He left a voicemail that sounded more irritated than worried. Said they were already behind on 2 payments and that mom and dad were really disappointed. Then added something like, "It's not just about you anymore. This affects the whole family." That line stuck with me all day. Because they'd made it just about me, the second they left me alone in that hospital. The second they decided Ryan's pain wasn't worth showing up for. The second they turned their backs on a scared, exhausted mother and a kid who just wanted someone to visit. That evening, Aunt Linda brought up something I hadn't even thought about. She asked what would happen if the house my brother lived in, the one I'd been helping to pay for, went into default. I shrugged. Didn't seem like my problem anymore. But she dug deeper. Told me that part of the property was in my father's name, and that could get messy if there were liens or lawsuits. That maybe my parents were panicking more than they let on. It made sense. Sunday morning it began. First, I got an alert from my bank. My brother had tried to authorize a payment from an old shared account we'd both been on briefly during the mortgage approval process. It had been dormant for years. I froze it instantly. Then my mom called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail this time. Her voice wasn't cold, it was tired. Like she was hoping I'd forgotten everything. She said, "I know we weren't there for you, but family pulls together when it matters. Can't we move forward from this?" No apology. No acknowledgement. Just more of that same manipulation in softer tones. I texted one sentence back. Moving forward means moving on. I'm done. 15 minutes later, Aunt Linda came into my room with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She said she'd canceled the private insurance policy she'd been covering for my parents for years. One they never even thanked her for. She said they'd have to start paying full premiums starting next month, and that she wasn't accepting their calls either. I didn't say anything. Just looked out the window and realized something simple but huge. This was the first time in my life that my boundaries actually meant something. They'd pushed. I didn't cave. And now for the first time they were scrambling. And not one of them had said a single word to Ryan. Not even to ask how he was healing. That was all I needed to know. The next week was unsettling. Not because anything bad happened, but because nothing did. The silence from my family felt off. Not like they'd moved on, but like they were waiting. Watching. My phone stayed quiet. My inbox was empty. Ryan was getting better every day and Aunt Linda had unofficially moved in, claiming the guest room like she'd never left. We started to feel something close to normal. Then Tuesday afternoon there was a knock. Not the bell, 3 soft knocks. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. It was my sister-in-law. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in a week. Her hair was pulled back, her face bare, her expression flat. She didn't say anything when I opened the door. Just stood there, eyes shifting around like she wasn't even sure why she was here. Then she spoke. Said the house was being foreclosed on. They were behind on multiple payments. The bank had issued a warning. They had 60 days, maybe less. Her voice cracked halfway through like she hadn't slept in days. I stared at her. Behind her in their parked car was my brother. Engine running. He never looked at the house. Didn't move. Just sat there like someone being forced to watch the consequences of a bet they thought they'd never lose. She said she wasn't here to beg. That wasn't her style, she said. But then came the real surprise. She asked if Aunt Linda could help. Not me. Not "we need you." Just, "Do you think your aunt might be willing to help us just until we figure this out?" I didn't even get the chance to answer. Aunt Linda had already walked into the hallway behind me, folding a dish towel. She stepped outside without a word, closing the door behind her. I watched from the window. She stood about a foot away from my sister-in-law and just listened. Didn't cross her arms. Didn't interrupt. Just listened. My sister-in-law's voice got shakier, her gestures more frantic. After about 2 minutes, Linda held up her hand and said something. I couldn't hear what, but it made the other woman freeze. Then she turned around and walked back to the car. My brother didn't even look at her. He got in and they drove off. Linda came back in and went straight to the sink, poured herself a glass of water and said, "They're more desperate than they want you to know." I asked her what she meant. She said they'd maxed out 2 credit cards and were trying to borrow from old friends. Even reached out to someone Linda used to work with, not knowing they were still in touch. And apparently my dad had started selling some of his collectibles. The ones he always said he'd never touch, not even in an emergency. The image of my father pawning off baseball memorabilia while pretending everything was fine made something inside me turn. I wasn't sure if it was anger or satisfaction. Maybe both. I thought that was it, the big event of the week. Then Thursday happened. Mid-morning I got a call from Ryan's school. It was the front office. The woman sounded nervous, careful with her words. She asked if I had authorized anyone new to pick Ryan up that day. I said no. She said a woman had come in, claimed to be Ryan's grandmother, and asked to take him home early. But when they checked the file and saw that Aunt Linda was listed, not my mother, they stalled her. Asked her to wait while they called me. I felt the floor drop. She didn't get near Ryan. Didn't even see him, they said. The staff handled it well. But I drove to the school in record time anyway, heart pounding the whole way there. I kept picturing her trying to walk him out like she had any right. Like she deserved to. I got there and Ryan was fine, playing Uno with a friend in the aftercare room. Oblivious. I signed a new emergency contact sheet on the spot, scratching both my parents off the list in thick black ink. When I got home, Aunt Linda was vacuuming. I told her what happened. She turned the vacuum off and didn't say a word for a while. Then she said we should install a front camera, change the locks, and maybe look into a restraining order. She wasn't joking. Later that night, while Ryan was asleep and Aunt Linda was reading in the den, I checked my email. There was a message from my dad. No greeting. No subject line. Just one sentence. I don't know what happened to you, but you've changed. I read it twice, then shut my laptop. He was right. I had changed. And I wasn't going back. By November, it was obvious their world was cracking. But it wasn't loud. No slammed doors or screaming matches. It was slow, embarrassing, and private, the kind of unraveling they would have once judged someone else for. And it all started showing in tiny, pathetic ways. Aunt Linda started getting calls again. Not from my mom's number directly, but from unfamiliar ones with local area codes. Same voice, same nonsense. At first she ignored them. But one day she answered while we were having tea just to prove a point. It was my mom, pretending like they hadn't spoken in months. She went straight into a story about how my brother's youngest had to switch schools because of transportation issues, and how everything had been so stressful lately. No mention of Ryan. Not one question about her own grandson. Linda didn't say anything until my mom finally sighed and said, "Do you think Katie will ever forgive us?" Linda looked me right in the eye and said, "You've had 8 years to be a real family and you didn't take it. It's not about forgiveness. It's about who shows up." Then she hung up. That was the last call she answered. Around the same time I started hearing things. From mutuals. From old neighbors. My brother was working overnight security at a warehouse in the industrial district. The same place he used to make fun of when I worked there during college. One of my old coworkers spotted him in the parking lot, eating instant noodles in the front seat of his car before his shift. She told me he looked like he hadn't slept in days. His wife, Kayla, was working at a grocery store, bagging produce and clocking weekend shifts just to scrape together enough for the rent on a 2-bedroom in a grim-looking complex by the highway. They'd gone from 2 cars to 1. The second got repossessed. Then their house, the one I'd helped keep afloat for 5 years, popped up on a real estate site. The same one where they took engagement photos in the backyard. Listed as is. Empty inside. The kitchen I used to help clean after holiday dinners looked gutted and cold in the listing photos. They didn't even bother staging it. Foreclosure was final. They were out. They moved into the apartment before Thanksgiving. I only knew because Kayla accidentally left her Venmo privacy settings open and someone shared a screenshot of her payment to a babysitter. It had the address listed. I didn't look it up. A week later I got an email from Ryan's school. A generic holiday donation request, for students who wouldn't get gifts otherwise. I selected 2 tags from the giving tree, one for a boy around Ryan's age, and another for a girl who wanted nothing but a book about birds. Ryan helped me wrap everything. Linda added a winter coat to the bag. The night we dropped off the gifts, Ryan asked me if we were ever going to see those people again. I asked him who he meant. He said, the ones who don't care. I asked if he missed them. He shook his head. Later he told Aunt Linda that she was his real family, and that she makes the best grilled cheese in the world. She didn't cry until he left the room. Then came the next unexpected shift. My mom showed up at the clinic where I worked part-time. I didn't see her. A coworker told me later that a woman came in, asked for me by name, then left when they said I wasn't there. Same description. Same voice. The next day I received a letter in the mail. No envelope. Just folded paper stuck in our mailbox. It was handwritten from my dad. No apology. No emotion. Just the sentence. "We didn't raise you to be like this." I read it twice and threw it away. He was right in a way. They raised me to serve, to sacrifice, to keep quiet. And I'd broken that. I'd broken it cleanly, completely. They didn't recognize me anymore, and honestly, that was the point. Meanwhile, Aunt Linda was thriving. She repotted my dying houseplants, took over school pickups, and started teaching Ryan how to play chess. She even rearranged our living room while I was at work one day, said it had stuck energy. She was probably right. It felt better. And through it all, the most unbelievable part was how okay we were. No backup. No family dinners. No fake holidays with plastic smiles. Just our small, honest team. Me, Ryan, and Aunt Linda. One night at dinner, I told her I didn't know how to ever repay her. She said, "You already have. You let me in." That was the only kind of family I needed. And the best part? None of us missed the ones who left. I used to think family was permanent. Something etched into your life like your name or your fingerprints. Unchangeable, inescapable. I don't think that anymore. The holidays came and went. No cards, no calls, no gifts for Ryan. But for the first time in years, I didn't brace myself for disappointment. There was nothing to expect. Nothing to wait for. Just the three of us cooking dinner, watching old movies, and making hot chocolate from scratch because Aunt Linda said the powdered stuff was a crime against cocoa. Ryan thrived. He aced his winter reading assessment. His appetite came back. He started sleeping through the night again. No more waking up with stomach pain. No more flinching when someone mentioned hospitals. And I did something I hadn't done since college. I started drawing again. Aunt Linda bought me a sketch pad and some charcoal sticks for Christmas. I didn't even ask. She said she remembered me doodling in the margins of my notebooks when I was 17. I'd forgotten that about myself. Somewhere in January, my mom emailed me again. This time it was a list of bullet points. I never said I didn't care. You misunderstood our silence. You're hurting the entire family over one bad week. There was no mention of Ryan. Not one word. I didn't respond. A few days later, my dad sent a message through a mutual acquaintance. Someone who still couldn't decide if they were on my side or not. He said my dad was concerned about my emotional stability, and that the family was open to a meeting to reconcile, but only if I was ready to be reasonable. That made me laugh out loud. They were still framing it like I was the problem. Like I was the one who broke something. Maybe I did. Maybe I broke the system they'd built where I carried the weight and got nothing back but a pat on the head and another bill to cover. I finally replied with 2 sentences. This isn't about a bad week. It's about the 20 years before it. I didn't hear from them after that. The following month, Ryan's class had a special person day. Bring someone who helps you, teaches you, supports you. He brought Aunt Linda. He stood in front of the class and said, "This is my Aunt Linda. She's really smart and makes good sandwiches and helped my mom when I was in the hospital. She stayed with me every day." When he got home, he made her a thank you card. Hand-drawn. With stick figures. The whole thing made her cry again, quietly in the kitchen while pretending she was chopping onions. That night, I tucked Ryan in and asked if he ever thought about Grandma or Grandpa anymore. He shrugged and said, "Not really. They didn't come when it mattered." That was it. No anger. No sadness. Just a kid who knew who was there and who wasn't. Me. I was done mourning people who chose not to show up. We made a new kind of family. One that didn't run on guilt or obligation. One that didn't pretend. One that made grilled cheese at midnight and built Lego castles that took over the dining table for a week. I didn't get revenge. I got freedom. And that was better than anything I could have planned.